I was sent to Washington, D.C. to investigate the youth vote, the demographic group of voters between the age of 18 and 24. Just like generations before them, the millennials and Generation Y are now set to take over politics soon. But at the midterms in 2018, they only amounted to about 30 million entitled voters, roughly 12% of all voters in the US. As I'm strolling through the city and past the memorials, I begin to wonder if and how they'll be able to change their future. Facing problems like being labeled as apolitical seem to end in the future clash of generations at the ballots, but it might also give the youth movement new strength. I'm meeting with the president of the Young Democrats of the District of Columbia. Jennifer Blemmer tells me how they're trying to get young people involved in politics. With events like debate watch parties or listening sessions, they try to ensure that youngsters vote blue. Confronted with the statement they were getting more and more apolitical, she shares her stance with me.
I've seen a couple of studies that say that millennials aren't necessarily apolitical, but they are losing faith in institutions. So like military, government, like they are just kind of becoming more disenfranchised by it.
We discuss the latest debates and the divided party. It doesn't seem to matter whether you're Team Bernie or Biden. The shared goal is change.
Most people would say that they just want to be able to ensure that we can defeat Donald Trump in November and make sure he's no longer president of like anything ever again.
Sounds reasonable for a Democrat, but what does the other side think? I drive across town to meet with Robert Sinners, chairman of the Young Republicans. Once a month the group meets here at the Capitol Hill Club, which is for Republican members only. In order to get inside, one needs to be accompanied by a member. Unfortunately, Robert had to cancel our appointment. On my quest, I come across Professor Dr. Hans Knoll, a political scientist at Georgetown University. We meet at his office where we talk about youngsters' top priorities in this year's election.
In the United States, we have a lot of, sometimes difficult Byzantine rules for access to participating in the political system, and maybe we should have some reforms to that. Younger voters are really concerned about those kinds of issues, so that's really a very top issue for them.
Voter access means that young people always need to know about the varying election laws, but that doesn't discourage them. There's a balance between those who engage in politics and those who don't.
It's hard to say that they get more and more apolitical. I mean, I think that young people often have other things to do, right? And so they're often are less political in general. But there is also this movement to try to get younger people engaged and involved. And so that's always a tension. Young people have other things more important to do. They're pressured to do all the other decisions, but there's a movement trying to engage them, involve them. And so then that keeps us at a stasis that continues to try to involve younger voters.
Now that I'm here on campus, I should seize the opportunity and get in touch with actual youngsters. Although it's spring break, I managed to meet at least a few. Catherine Paravano is from DC and studies government and Spanish. Does it really feel like that this year is going to be a clash of generations at the ballots?
Not the way I perceive it. I think there's an overstatement saying that young people always vote really far left, old people usually vote hard right. And I think that's a really overgeneralization. And, I don't see young people going to vote just saying, oh, I'm just gonna beat the candidate that old people like. And I think it's not necessarily even about new ideas versus old ideas. It's just taking ideas from before and tweaking them and making them better for the generation that is coming up now.
And how about the youth's alleged apolitical attitude?
I wouldn't say they're apolitical. It's just that there might be a few cases where they might not feel necessarily motivated to participate. But I think that everyone at least has a sense of what's happening around them.
Armed with my microphone, I take a walk to gather more opinions.
Bernie is awaiting a generational war at the ballots. Do you think that is going to happen?
I would hope it happens, but I think it's tough now, right? I mean, especially with everything that's going on with coronavirus and people feeling really continuously feeling disheartened by what the current administration is doing. I would hope that there's more youth activism at the polls. I guess we'll have to see. I think more than just youth voting, I think it's really important that people of color really come out and vote. And I think that's what's going to hopefully save the Dems. but it's really hard to say.
The only reason Bernie is really losing is because the young voters aren't coming to support him in the polls, and I don't really see that trend changing, sadly. Hopefully it does, and because so many people actually like Bernie, they become so motivated that they go to vote, but more than likely they're just not going to go.
I don't know. I think he really wants it to, but from what I've seen, like, people my age just aren't voting or aren't voting for him necessarily. I don't know. I've seen a lot of conflicting information recently. I feel like maybe the youth vote's not going to come through for him. I don't know.
If there really is going to be a clash of generations at the ballots remains to be seen. Only 43% cast their vote in the last presidential election. The midterms in 2018 registered a turnout of only 32%, but that's almost twice as much as in the 2014 midterms. So it seems to me that young people are headed in the right direction, beating on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the future.